You ask why I take sleeping pills every night.
Because I still see Russia in my dreams. More than anything, I want to forget the winter of 41 and that battle. We had no chance of repelling the Russian attack on that cold December night. We had to pull the frozen corpses of our comrades out of the ditch and build barricades out of their stiff bodies. Those dead men literally saved us from bullets and shrapnel on that freezing day in 41.
By the end of November 1941, the Red Army and the Soviet Union as a whole were literally on the edge of the abyss. German tanks stood near Khimki and what is now Sheremetyevo Airport. Wehrmacht infantry bypassed Zvenigorod and took Istra. German officers, looking through binoculars from the half-ruined bell towers of villages near Moscow, could already make out the outlines of the golden domes of Moscow churches in the frosty haze. The frost had hardened the ground and allowed tanks with black crosses on their sides to bypass strongpoints off the roads, but the real cold was still ahead. At that moment, it seemed that the Wehrmacht needed only 2 or 3 fresh battalions, and Moscow would fall like other European capitals.
In the trenches, we thought the same. Officers were seriously dividing up Moscow apartments, dreaming of trophies and a full Christmas. And for me, the capture of the Russian capital was supposed to become a personal triumph. Goebbels' propaganda was preparing a special documentary about me. 3 triplet brothers, identical as drops of water, serving in different branches of the Third Reich's armed forces, would meet in Moscow, celebrate victory over the USSR, and greet the new year 1942 in front of the cameras. But by December, it became clear that the idea would remain only an idea and nothing more. At the end of November, I learned from a letter that my parents had received news of my brother Oliver's death. He had fought not far from me and was killed back in October. Triplets, identical as drops of water. We were supposed to symbolize the strength of the Reich. They protected me, gave me safe assignments, and kept me away from the worst of it. I was untouchable until Oliver was killed in October near Gzhatsk. The propaganda machine figured it out before I got the letter from my parents. The story was canceled. And that very week, I went from a future star to cannon fodder.
At the start of the war, the main slogan of Goebbels' propaganda was simple: "We will win before winter." But later, when the situation at the front became critical by November, the propaganda made a complete turn, abandoning the idea of lightning war in favor of a cult of endurance. 3 triplet brothers serving in different branches of the armed forces, in the infantry, the Luftwaffe, and the Afrika Korps, were a perfect target for propaganda. But after the failure of Operation Barbarossa, the old propaganda image of the triumphant hero, the conqueror of cities, stopped working. It was replaced by a new prototype, the martyr hero, the one who carries his burden to the end. Propaganda shifted its focus to heroic defense, where the soldier is just a cog in the machine of death, but still fanatical and unshakable.
I never saw anything good in military service. It sickened me. I quickly realized that this war was a giant meat grinder for disposing of people. After seeing the horrors of war, I lived with only one thought: how to get out of there. On that December day in 1941, I thought I would remain forever on that snow-covered field. But what happened next still haunts me in my dreams. We were retreating to another defensive line near Moscow when we suddenly had to meet a Russian attack in a snow-covered field. There was very little time to prepare the defense, just a couple of hours. We had even fewer chances to hold on and survive. The frozen ground would not give way. We had no proper tools. The supply columns had fallen behind somewhere or run into the Russians. Those wagons carried pickaxes and real shovels. We had to scrape at the frozen ground with short entrenching tools. In just an hour, we tore our palms into bloody blisters, but did not gain even a meter. Instead of trenches, all we got were shallow holes that barely covered our heads and could not protect us from shrapnel in battle. Our corporal found a way out. In a shallow ditch, he found piles of bodies thrown together. It was almost impossible to tell where our soldiers ended and the Russians began. They had not been removed after the battles of the previous month. They had frozen there and turned into ice mummies, hard as stone. It was decided to reinforce our positions. We lined our firing pits with bodies as if they were sandbags. The ice statues that had once been people were supposed to catch the bullets and fragments flying at us. We repelled that attack. Without those dead men, we would not have held out. The moral of this story is that there is no morality in war. You can be shot before you kill your first enemy. Out there, using the bodies of fallen soldiers felt normal to me. I will say even more. After the battle, we still did not remove them or bury them like human beings. We left them lying in the snow in the blizzard. We had no strength left. We were exhausted. We were tired, and we had no idea how much farther we would have to go, how much more we would retreat, or where we would finally stop. In the spring of 1942, the front froze. I knew it was the calm before the storm. The command was preparing a massive blow in the south. After the failure near Moscow, everyone understood that the war of attrition had begun. We were pulled back from the front line. We were reorganized. Few of us understood then that the greatest trial still lay ahead. And this was only the beginning.
At the beginning of the summer campaign of 1942, Nazi Germany was in desperate need of oil resources. As early as April, the German command had approved a plan for an offensive into the south of the Soviet Union. The reason was simple: fuel. Without reliable sources of oil, Germany could not sustain a long war. The unrealistic dreams of a blitzkrieg had been buried in the snowdrifts of 41 near Moscow, and now technology and resources had become the decisive factors. The offensive operation on the southern sector of the Eastern Front, approved by the German command in early April, was given the codename Blau. Later, the plan was detailed and split into sub-operations: Blau I, strike on Voronezh; Blau II, the advance to the Don; and Blau III, the offensive towards Stalingrad and the Caucasus.
My situation worsened in the spring of 1942.
As soon as we caught our breath after the heavy fighting, it became known that my brother Ludwig had deserted. He was fighting in Africa, and he was supposed to appear with me and my earlier fallen brother Oliver in the propaganda story. He crossed the front line on his own and surrendered to the British. At first, I was something like an untouchable in my battalion. Instead of becoming a war hero and a star whose face would be known by everyone in the Reich, I became just like all the others. My life was worth no more than the life of any soldier. And after Ludwig's act, I was placed in the category of the unreliable. Their thinking was simple: if your brother did that, then you can do it too. They started watching me. The regimental commander even spoke to me separately, and my company commander was only looking for a reason to get rid of me. Only a thin thread separated me from being sent to a disciplinary battalion. My comrades, many of whom already considered us dead men and did not hope to return home, did not really care. They still talked with me, smoked with me, and shared their food. But my command was always on guard with me. I was never sent on reconnaissance and never assigned to night watch. In fact, it seemed to me that the others had quietly been told not to take their eyes off me. Soon, the heavy fighting and my own conduct put an end to the talk behind my back. In the summer of '42, during the heavy battles for Voronezh, something happened that changed my life. Our squad had to cross one of the streets where we had come upon a T-34. A storm group knocked out that Russian tank a few hours later. It stood there for a long time without any sign of life. I thought no one inside was alive. But I soon paid for that mistake. When I ran past the tank, I took a bullet in the back. A wounded Russian tank crewman shot me. He had climbed out through the lower hatch and was lying under the tank, slowly bleeding out. The surgeon said that if the bullet had touched my spine just a millimeter farther to the left, I would have remained crippled for life and would never have walked again. You could say I was lucky. Even so, I had problems walking for a long time, and recovery after the wound was difficult. I was written off and declared only partly fit for service. But life mocked me again. As soon as I could walk more or less properly in formation, the Wehrmacht found a task for me. At the end of 1944, they forced me to deliver draft notices to conscripts. A man who hated war became a link in the military machine and a messenger recruiting fresh cannon fodder. All I want is to forget that damned war which twisted my youth, my life, and took my loved ones from me.